Welcome to the broadcast, my dear old flutes. I'm channeling Queen Mary, or perhaps Queen Alexandra. The King, you will be pleased to know, was a great success with his Easter message that was pre-recorded. He gave us an address together with a very nicely read Bible reading. I hope you all enjoyed that. It was rather lovely. And he's also been seen holding a number of audiences at the palace with new ambassadors who presented their credentials to the King. His Majesty also welcomed His Excellency the Secretary-General of the Climate Vulnerable Forum. And my understanding is that when the King attends the Easter Matin service on Sunday, he will be sitting slightly apart from the rest of the congregation. He will enter with Camilla, with Queen Camilla, but then he will be sat slightly apart to mitigate any health concerns and health risks from the rest of the congregation. This is in an arrangement agreed with his medical team to protect his health. There was also a lovely photograph of the Duchess of Edinburgh enjoying a solo carriage riding session in the grounds of Windsor Castle. So I'm just popping in for a quickie today, my dears. I've got nothing thrilling to share with you, but I can only offer my company for those of you that want to share a cup of tea with me, put the kettle on and pull up a throne, my dear. It's one of those sort of affairs today. Take it or leave it, but I will not apologise for it. The Queen's been up to a few things we're going to take a look at, and I'm going to read through a few comments and questions, including this one from Richard Mundy. There was a dreadful story in the news today, a dreadful story here in the kingdom, and the name that cropped up of the man that has been attacked in Chelsea in London rang a bell with me, and it was one of you, and it was a comment from 2 months ago that I never replied to, but just so you know, these things don't go under the radar to the point that I missed them. Richard Mundy left a comment 2 months ago saying, River, are you familiar with the London antique boutique owner Ian Towning? And I wasn't. I'd never heard the name, so I googled it. This chap, this was 2 months ago, and I saw exactly who you were talking about, and what a fantastic, fabulous character this Ian Towning seems to be. He runs an arcade full of incredible jewellery and antiques, and he's appeared on Dickinson's Real Deal and Posh Porn, P-A-W-N, note that. What a fabulous character, a wonderful array of photographs you can see on his social media, and I can see exactly why you might have associated us together or connected me to him. I can't think why, really, but yes, I can absolutely see it. You know, both Campers Christmas, glitz, baubles, this kind of thing, slices of fruit I see, a love of the Queen, and he seems to have a grotto and Aladdin's cave that puts Tip Jar Corner to shame, doesn't it, my dear? This is a Tip Jar Palace, and he does live shows as well on Instagram. A magpie drawn to shiny, glittery things, sprinkling his own brand of magic and colour over an otherwise dreary life. And I think even somebody said to me recently, they mentioned David Dickinson. Do I watch Dickinson's Real Deal? And I don't. It's not my cup of tea. It might have been you, Marilyn. I'm not quite sure. Someone mentioned David Dickinson and his permatan. But very sadly, the name cropped up in the news today of this Ian Towning because he was attacked this week by hammer-wielding thugs at his location. He's 73 years old, by the way, this gentleman. Or lady, I don't know what he calls himself, but in this small arcade in Chelsea, the Bourbon Hanby Arcade in the King's Road area. I'm bringing it to your attention because he's one of us, my dear. You know, those of us old fruits, if you will. You know, a fruity gem. He's one of us, my dear, a magpie that likes to collect these things, and he's been selling them from Chelsea for a long time, lots of second-hand wonderful jewels, fabulously expensive ones as well. And 3 of the people there sustained non-life-threatening injuries, and this gang smashed up all the display cabinets there, helped themselves to all the jewels, fantastic jewels. And I think they're reviewing CCTV footage, but I very much hope that they're brought to justice. And it turns out that years ago, in 2008, this happened before, at the same place. And Ian Towning tackled an armed gang at that time, and he fought back with this gang and he was attacked with sledgehammers and guns they were toting. Well, they didn't shoot him, but he had his teeth damaged and a broken jaw. And another reason I'm bringing this to your attention, apart from the fact that it's worth out checking this guy, I'll put a link to one of the videos of him in the description box. I saw one of his videos called All That Glitters, and you can see why he's so fabulous, and I want you to know about him. But the other reason is because this is Holy Week, this is Easter week, and you know me, there's always a message behind the froth and bubble that I do try to impart without preaching. I hope without preaching. But 6 years after that first attack in 2008, out of the blue, he received an apology from his attacker, who was 16 years old at the time and who had got in with a bad crowd. And he asked for forgiveness. This young man now asked for forgiveness. He had served 4 years out of an 8-year sentence and got out, but had found himself then married and settled down, and said that he was a new man, had seen the error of his ways. And Ian said that I said that I had moved on, I had my jaw repaired and teeth fixed, and that life goes on, and yes, I did forgive him, and I hold no malice towards him. Isn't that something? Because along with the King's Easter message, I think that that is a message that we can all aspire to. It's not always easy to forgive and forget. It's even harder if nobody asks for our forgiveness and to be forgotten. But it's a gift to ourselves as much as to perpetrators, if we can learn to forgive. So I don't mean to come across as pious. Maybe I do. I just think it's food for thought. And it hit me because it's gracious, isn't it? You recognise it when you hear grace from another person. This poor chap's been attacked at least twice now, and his face all mangled up and had to be repaired in the past. But he's come to terms with the fact that the path of least resistance and the healthiest path for him is to be able to let it go and forgive. And for those of you who might be an admirer of Jesus, that was his message as well. So my love, and I'm sure many of your best wishes, go out to Ian Towning. A comment from Bodess. Are you going to cover Queen Camilla at Worcester today? My sister has been involved in getting the cathedral gardens ready there. She's a volunteer gardener there and says it's all stations go. She won't be seen though, but her handiwork might be. Well, my dear, I did look at the images of Worcester, and I'm about to play some now of the Queen's visit, and it did look absolutely glorious. And weren't you lucky? Because I hear that after a rough start, the sun came out and was shining, and it made for the most glorious scene. And I did notice the flora and fauna, and I did notice how absolutely exquisite the cathedral was looking. So bravo to your sister. And you were one of a few basketeers that mentioned that you'd been in attendance or knew people that were in attendance, so thank you for your messages. The Queen presented Maundy money to 75 men and 75 women, representing the age of the sovereign, in Worcester Cathedral in recognition of service to their local communities. And this was an historic moment actually, because Camilla was the first consort in history, the first consort ever to assume that role, traditionally carried out by the King or Queen themselves. A high honour, and she did very well. Maundy Thursday commemorates Jesus sharing the Last Supper with his disciples and commanding them to love one another as I have loved you. And the tradition of the monarch or their representative, in this case presenting arms, goes back to the year 1213. And the nosegays this year were looking particularly splendid, I thought. I loved the colourways. It's so Easter, the blues, the pinks, the creamy whites, just gorgeous. For the first time, the King tasked Worcester Cathedral Flower Guild with crafting Maundy service nosegays, and they worked together with the Royal Floristry team, and the nosegays were presented to Queen Camilla by the local children. Splendid job, splendid job. Queen Camilla wore a pair of Cartier brooches that come from the collection of Queen Elizabeth II and are rarely worn, so it was quite a treat to see them, together with Her Majesty's beige faux fur hat and a coat by Fiona Clare. Sheena Beatty says, never did I think I would appear in one of your broadcasts, River. Blink and you would miss it, but there I am in the crowd in Shrewsbury, or Shrewsbury, depending on how you pronounce it. We'll come to that in a bit. You are correct in thinking Shrewsbury is beautiful, and I think you would like it very much. Obviously, we have problem elements, but I don't think there is anywhere within this country without them now, sadly. I arrived 2.5 hours early to wait for the Queen yesterday. There was only me and a friendly policeman at the barrier at that point. It was cold, it was raining, but the sun came out when Camilla arrived, and by then, as you say, there were 2,000 people. Wonderful. So I had a good spot, but by sheer luck, she came over to collect some flowers, and I was able to have a conversation about books and reading with her and shake her hand. She asked me if I was a member of the Fruit Basketeers. I'm joking. Of the Queen's reading room. And I was proud to say I was. Well, that wasn't too far-fetched, by the way, because as I've told you before, at least one of the Queen's companions is a fruit basketeer, so it's not that far-fetched, and watches this show. But as for the reading room, you were proud to say you were a member, which is a relief, isn't it? It would have been a little bit awkward if you said no. She looked gorgeous and seemed like a lovely lady. A woman in the crowd filmed some of my encounter on her phone and was able to send it to me, so I have a precious memory captured forever. How lovely. Okay, I've switched the bandeau back into a headband. I wasn't really feeling it, but I tried. What can I say? Now, if you recall in the last broadcast, I asked if there are any volunteers out there, gentlemen volunteers, to drive me around the country, because I said there are so many far-flung corners of the kingdom that I want to see in this lifetime, because I do cherish so much about this kingdom. To explore the tea rooms and the coffee shops and the market towns and the villages, rural places and the coast. I thought that would be a lovely idea. And it captured your imagination, I've got to say, with a few suggestions. I can't say that I was inundated with offers. I can't say that I've been inundated with offers from gentlemen, I'll tell you, but there were a few. There were a few, including one from Danny Thomas, who I recognise as a regular basketeer, if you will. Danny Thomas, and from what I can tell from your photograph, Daniel, you look rather handsome, I've got to say. Look rather handsome, although I did look at your channel and your subscriptions. I had a nose around, and I see that you, amongst others, you subscribe to Lady Gaga and Wayne Goss. Now, there's nothing wrong with subscribing to either of those people. It's a question of compatibility, my dear. It's a question of compatibility. Two queens can't share a throne, can they? Be a rather tight fit, you know. Two queens can't share a throne. But we'll see. We'll have to see, my dear. But you left a wonderful comment, and you said, "Oh my goodness, I'm from Shrewsbury. I live in London now, but I'm incredibly proud to say I'm from such a beautiful little town. The county of Shropshire really is one of the most gorgeous parts of England." I got many comments telling me that, and it's really given me an itch I want to scratch. It's given me an itch I want to scratch, my dear. I want to see all these places. One of the most gorgeous parts of England. And to hear that our Queen was in Shrewsbury, my beloved little town, is just fabulous. Thank you for always making me smile with your well put together shows. You're very welcome, my dear. If I make you smile, my job is done. You always seem to make me smile and lift my mood when I need it most. If you would like an adventure up to the little town of Shrewsbury, and I love that you got the name right as it should be spoken, then I would be more than happy to escort you. Oh! Ladies, where's my fan? Oh, I have to hide away to escort me. Ah, to escort humble me, humble moi, up to Shrewsbury. Well, I have to check my diary, my dear. How wonderful to escort me. But will you shag me, my dear? That's the question. I would be more than happy to escort you, but thank you, River, you're just fabulous. And then there's an emoji with brown praying hands, even though you look right in your profile photo, but brown praying hands, so you might be biracial or you might be doing a Meghan. That's the kind of thing she'd do, isn't she? A few degrees browner for the emojis. I know a few people that do that, actually. sort of brown up. I'm just playing with you, my dear. Thank you so much for your message. It was very kind. But the idea of me swanning about the kingdom got a few of your imaginations going. Alison Wonderland, that's Alison Wonderland, says, River, you are describing a fantastic TV series I would delight in watching. You being driven around, showcasing gorgeous, charming places, interacting with wonderful people, and eating stunning food. And Androgyny77 says, I hope all your driving holiday dreams come true. Maybe you could pitch the idea to some programming creator and get them to pay for the whole thing. You could be like Penelope Keith. You'll have to indulge me, my dears, but I love this. I love this idea. Like Penelope Keith, our Margot, trotting all around those villages. River's Best of British or something like that. But who can we cast as your chauffeur? David McIntosh? Well, I had to Google David McIntosh. I had no idea who he is, my dear. And he's some sort of beefy type that is now employed as a gladiator. I'm not really sure how much is going on up there with him, so I need someone with some sort of brain to pass the time with. He could be an intellectual for all I know. Although he did crash that van load of dead badgers, so maybe he shouldn't be behind the wheel. Well, I do need a very good driver to get me about safely, my dear, I do. Dawn7, or Kevin, C-E-V-E-N, says, River explores the kingdom. Sounds like an adventure program we could all watch. So thank you for those comments suggesting that I devise some sort of television program and pitch it to producers. You know, I must confess that I am not angling for any sort of career in entertainment. If I was, then I probably wouldn't be doing this. And as I've mentioned recently, I don't even put mine or management's contact details in the description box. So if I was angling for some sort of career, and I do get hundreds of thousands of views, then that detail would be there. So it is often assumed that I am angling for a career in that industry. I am not. I am truly not. I have no interest in it in this modern age and the age of social media. I know enough people in that industry to know that it's not all it's made out to be. And in this new age of social media, it's just totally unappealing to me. It would have been fabulous to be a star or even a celebrity of the yesteryear, my dear. The yesteryear. We're talking decades ago now. But today, in 2024, no thank you, my dear. Sounds awfully stressful. And to be quite honest with you, I've already enjoyed success within that area and that arena. I've already enjoyed rather heady heights in that arena. Been there, done it. However, I did rather like the idea of this. The idea of me, let's say, 10 episodes for a first series, selecting a different location for each episode, for example, Shrewsbury, we'll use that as an example. Which, oh yeah, I was going to mention, wasn't I? As for the pronunciation, it's hotly contested whether it's Shrewsbury, Shrewsbury, or even Shrewsbury. I was saying Shrewsbury, as in Taming of the Shrew. And I'd looked into it before the broadcast, and what I found was that just as Danny told me, most of the locals do indeed say Shrewsbury. But some of the posher locals will say Shrewsbury. And outsiders will call it Shrewsbury. Getting all tongue-tied now, but the consensus seems to be, from those that commented and those that actually lived there, that I got it right in this circumstance. Not saying that I always do. And it's exactly why I said that can't even blame Americans getting it wrong, because even within England and even within one town, there's no one official way of pronunciation. But anyway, I went with Shrewsbury. But yes, the series, selecting a different hotspot, and then, you know, as hidden gems, and with a focus on everything that is inspired by my Tip Jar Corner series, the small pleasures of life, finding a small recipe from each locality, if you will, talking to a local resident, making friends with one of the old ladies there who can show me a little recipe for a moment of pleasure, a small moment of pleasure like my milk and honey moments. Finding out some unusual local histories, having a gossip, and taking in the nature and the scenery and looking at that sort of beauty, and then perhaps going around the second-hand shops. That would be rather fun, wouldn't it? and being chauffeured along by a handsome gentleman, of course. In the process, taking in some cream teas, having some nibbles, just a gentle hour. We were talking about Alex Polizzi and her output recently, weren't we, and how much I enjoy that for daytime television. So something produced along that kind of vein, I suppose. Me trotting about the kingdom, delights of the kingdom, small pleasures with river. You know it. The idea did tickle me, I will tell you that. And I'm not really one to pitch myself at anyone. This is the thing. I'm not really one. I prefer people to come to me for that kind of thing. But if anybody is watching here from the kingdom that has contacts, it's something that can be discussed and looked into. It would only require a small production team and a small budget for most of it, although I don't want to get involved in anything that doesn't pay very decently for that kind of thing. I happen to know a few television presenters, and some of them work for peanuts. They're not that well paid. I want syndication. I want Jeremy Clarkson levels of Amazonic distribution. I want America, because America is the market that will really, really enjoy it, apart from those here in the kingdom and in Europe. America would love it. They'd love to see me. I know it. I've got many, many wonderful American fruity fans, and there is a real want and need for that in America. They enjoy seeing some of these shows. So it's something I would be prepared to look at. I'm not going to raise anybody's hopes here, and I'm not going to actively pursue it at this moment, but it gives a little grain of an idea of something that I think could be enjoyable, and also something that I think other people would find very enjoyable. And I like the thought, as a fan of daytime television, I like the thought of other people, you know, enjoying their tea and biscuits while seeing what I'm up to around the kingdom. But it's a fun little idea for us to toy with, isn't it? Ideas for me to toy with in my mind. But as I say, I don't perform for shekels. And I'm from the Judge Judy school of bargaining and bartering and negotiating. Don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining. That's a Judge Judy book. Yes. Baloney? A Judge Judy saying. She has a few books that I've read. Don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining. What was the other one? Well, there's Don't Judge a Book by its Cover. And there's another one. It might be Beauty Fades but Dumb is Forever. And she loves to tell the story over and over again of how she put up her salary. She called a meeting with an executive, and she wrote on a piece of paper exactly how many times she wanted an increase of her pay, because the show was going up in ratings through the roof, and she was getting paid great money, but she wanted real money. And she wrote down what she thought she was worth on a napkin or a piece of paper and passed it, and she was prepared to walk away if it wasn't going to be matched. But they needed her. She made herself indispensable. And they agreed to her price, which she never named, but as you know, she went on to become the highest paid television presenter in America, I believe. We've been discussing immigration a bit recently, and the subject will keep cropping up because it is a big, big topic. It's the biggest issue, really, politically speaking, in the kingdom. And in common with America, we have all of our elections coming up soon too. And Reform, who I've talked about recently, have been gaining even more ground and giving the Conservatives a run for their money. And I was reading an article by Matt Goodwin, who you might not know the name of, but you might recognise him because he pops up a lot on YouTube and some of the channels that we all watch. And he's good. I think he's rather good. And he has a popular Substack that I was reading. He's a bit of a pundit. You see him around on lots of newsworthy items, but he was showing a new map of Britain that has been based on new research showing the share of constituencies in blue where a majority of people support tighter controls on migration, and where instead in red the majority want to increase immigration and relax those controls. So as you can see there, everything in blue represents the silent, vast majority who want to support tighter controls on migration. That is the national picture, according to this research. which was taken from a sample of 4,000 people in Great Britain. And other statistics from this research include the fact that public perceptions of net migration are significantly out of kilter with reality, because voters were asked to give their estimate of current levels of net migration, and the average response was 70,000. This is what people think net migration is, on average, 70,000. No. If you're in the kingdom, what do you think it is? Are you well read on the subject? Would you hazard a guess? Because no, the net migration is not 70k. The actual level is 740,000. Plus. That's a conservative estimate of our net migration. 740,000. Which suggests that most people are totally unaware of the true scale of immigration. And the second finding, along with, there were basically 10 large findings that this chap was showing us, but the rest were hidden behind a paywall, so I couldn't read them. But the second finding was that every single political and demographic group in the kingdom, including Generation Z, the old Gen Zers aged 18 to 24, including university degree holders, Remain voters and Londoners, including all of them, said that immigration is too high. They all agree. And it's what is known as a valence issue, which was news to me. I hadn't heard of this expression before, but a valence issue, which means that only a tiny portion of people think otherwise and are leading on this issue, and they tend to be urban liberal graduates who dominate the institutions. And their valence issue seems to usurp the opinions of everybody else in the kingdom, including most of the electorate. And I must reiterate at this junction, I've said it many times in the past, but for newcomers and oldies alike, I want to make it clear that when we talk about immigration and we talk about the Muslim community, for example, I must reiterate that I have always had Muslim friends, colleagues, lovers and family members in more recent years. Most of them, the vast majority of them, if not all of the ones that I know and love, are very happy with the gentle Christianity that we have here in the background of the kingdom, and don't want the kingdom to be overtaken by any other religion, including their own. You know, they are integrated, they are British, they are with us, they have come up with us, we all know and love them and don't see them as outsiders or anything different, or think about the background of their family, however they came here to the kingdom. Don't think of them as immigrants or from immigrant families. This is not what we're talking about, general healthy immigration, be they black, brown, pink, yellow, green, whatever. We are talking about the very different form of mass immigration, rapid mass immigration from communities that are rather hostile to our own way of life. And I have no shame, embarrassment or fear in saying that I quite simply do not want the Muslim religion in future becoming a majority and influencing our laws with Sharia law, for example, which might have sounded hysterical a little while ago, hysterical thinking, but this is what is on the way. In the not too distant, have no doubt about it, you know. We should be free to offend within the confines of the existing law, to offend, to blaspheme, to mock all religions and everything. This is what freedom has traditionally meant here for a very long time. And on the subject of Easter eggs that are now being touted as gesture eggs, as we discussed in the last broadcast in some quarters, by Cadbury's, I had a comment from Auntie A's who said, "Quite right, River. I am a Muslim from Malaysia. I've always bought an Easter egg and look forward to it every year. What on earth does a gesture egg even mean? Eating an Easter egg will not make me Christian, and it promotes appreciation of other traditions. Gesture? Honestly." Well, quite, my dear Auntie A's, quite. Can you imagine, for example, when it is Diwali? I enjoy celebrating Diwali with my friends who pertain to that religion, and I'll sometimes buy them a box of mithai, the little selection of colourful sweets. Can you imagine? the very thought of rebranding that to my favour, not me Thai, but me try, the me try selection. I don't want to call it me Thai, your traditional, and me try for Christians. No, my dear. Not only would you not get away with it if the situation was reversed, but it also simply wouldn't be necessary. Not necessary whatsoever. Beth O'Toole says, River, as an American who adores you, I could not agree more with your comments about immigration. My grandparents were immigrants and came to the US during the wave of European immigration in the early 1900s. They were Italian and came for work, more opportunities, and mostly to become Americans. Every country, no matter the size, has the right to control who crosses its borders. I know the issues it brings even for a country the size of the US. I cannot even imagine the difficulties it's causing in the UK, especially with boats arriving daily, filled to the brim with people who are not coming, as my grandparents did, not to become British, but to leech off the system. Britain is past the point of being able to accommodate true refugees because so many others have come illegally just to gain the benefits that the UK offers. Precisely, my dear. Precisely. It spoils it for the genuine ones, doesn't it? Resources are so stretched because people come in their droves that don't need to. One of the main reasons the divide between the very wealthy and the middle class is widening is because of uncontrolled immigration. Anyone who understands economics, even at a basic level, knows what happens when you have a massive influx of untrained people. Wages go down because people will work for less and housing costs go up due to limited supply. It is common sense. Diversity has helped make the UK a wonderful, vibrant country. Uncontrolled immigration is no longer about diversity. Now it's about trying to save the way of life that its citizens have worked hard to create. Now, this is a rather long comment, but I'm going to continue reading it because it sums up and reflects so many of the thoughts of hundreds, if not thousands of you that have shared similar sentiments. So it's worth me taking the time. Again, my grandparents wanted more than anything to become Americans. They learned the language, the laws, the customs, and blended their traditions where they fit with the values of America. The values and traditions that did not fit were willingly discarded. Their goal was to be part of the greater values that had made America a better place, at the time, to live. Now the US and the UK are facing the difficult issue of what to do with people who barge across their borders with no desire to assimilate. They expect the country to assimilate to their values. It cannot work that way. Why come to another country where you do not wish to learn the language, the laws, or the customs? They come because they know they will be taken care of, not because they want to work to become part of something greater than themselves. I am a product of immigration. I am pro-immigration, but controlled immigration. Hear, hear. Why should a country allow someone who is openly hostile to the values of the country a visa to stay? Every country has the right to deny or remove immigrants who do not want to blend into the existing society, especially those who are openly hostile to it. I'm not even speaking to the dangerous drain these people have put onto a healthcare system that was not created to care for so many people. Schools that are not prepared to teach children in languages few educators speak. House people when the number of houses is limited to begin with. It causes chaos. And I will say at this juncture that the blame, as far as I'm concerned, does not lie with the people who are taking the opportunity and the advantage to do these things. So I do not encourage hatred towards any of these individuals as people. My disdain is towards the governments that are allowing it to happen. The governments and some of the people that are allowing this type of chaos to unfold in our societies, our hitherto somewhat civilized societies. You have always spoken about your belief in diversity, River. You have never said anything against immigrants or immigration. Well, I'm not the greatest lover of the word diversity, but your sentiments are true. I love variety, and I have no problem with all colours, creeds and races. You have never said anything against immigrants or immigration, controlled immigration, that I can remember, and I've watched you since your first month of posting videos. I believe you love Britain and being British. I believe you also know the value of those people who come to Britain and want to become British. Yes, I do. versus those who come to Britain and do not believe in the values of being British. There is an enormous difference between those two kind of immigrants. Absolutely, my dear. Best wishes. Channel the royal spirit, you say, as you so wonderfully do. Thank you, Beth O'Toole. I think you speak words that chime with many of us. Brits and Americans alike, and fellow Europeans. I've had comments from many European countries along the same lines, saying that they've noticed exactly the same thing happening and feel rather helpless about the situation. I've also had comments saying that Poland is the one to keep an eye on, that we should all move to Poland because they have an absolutely zero tolerance policy on immigration in Poland, which is turning out very successful. It's also becoming a very successful country that could very well is likely to overtake the UK, for example, economically speaking, I think, in the next few years, which looked unlikely a few years ago. That's doing splendidly well. The trouble is, with no offence to it's Poland. It's Poland. I don't have any great desire to go and live there and end my days there. But it's interesting to see their journey. One more comment from Amanda, who says, I was brought up as a Muslim for the first 15 years of my life and met many wonderful ones in London as a child. I have footage of myself skipping up to the London Mosque, opposite the zoo, whilst it was still being built. However, my father abused me for 15 years, and when caught was imprisoned in Wormwood, serving just 18 months of a 3-year sentence. So as the eldest of 4 girls, he was divorced by my mother, and we came up north. What shocked me was how the mosque welcomed him back and found him a wife on his release from jail. As the mother of 2, it scares me how migrants, single Muslim men, are being housed on our camps, hotels and such, and are allowed to roam free amongst our children. Genuine refugees, yes, but young Muslim men too. And this is a comment from someone raised Muslim. We are losing. Do you see? We're in it together. Muslims, Christians, reasonable thinking, open-minded people of all types of fruit coming together on this issue. We are losing our sovereignty and England doesn't feel like England anymore. Abuse never leaves one. And I'm 58 now. My father had been a Marine who fought and changed his religion the year I was born. The royal family I was brought up to respect, and I do, but if we don't stop this influx of young Muslim men, we'll be putting your sovereignty on the line. Muslim gangs are known to be abusing young English girls. There are good Muslims I'm fully aware of, but I'm sorry I find myself looking in utter disbelief at what is happening to our wonderful country of the past. And as I said to you, Amanda, in the comments, thank you for your candour. I'm sorry to hear what you had to endure. And thank you for sharing that story and your sentiments. And just to finish off this broadcast with a lighter tonic, it's the refreshment of the wonderful Princess Royal in the heart of the Cairngorm National Park when she visited the Glenfeshie estate this week to meet students from across the University of the Highlands Partnership during field sessions as part of an integrated land use conference. She never stops, does she, my dear? But it's time for me to stop and quit waffling and leave you to enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you for joining me. I look forward to seeing you next time, my dear. Have a fruity evening and channel the royal spirit. Toodle pip.